Hey, you're listening to the Uprev Ninja podcast. This is episode number 61, and I'm your host, Tom Hudson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Uprev Ninja podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to uprev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
So today's guest is Daryl Elliott Green. You know, he was a police officer who survived being shot in the head from less than a meter away on May 1st, back in 2000. For his actions on that fateful night, he was awarded the Queensland Police highest accolade for bravery. Now Daryl spends his time speaking professionally on the incident and the journey that followed. He is still, however, a serving officer 17 years after the accident. Hey, today on the Uprev Ninja podcast, I've got Daryl Elliott Green with us. How you doing today, Daryl?
I'm excellent, Tom.
That's great, man. I love the pre-chat that we just had. You know, it's always good to get to know my guest a little bit better before we just dive into some of this like heart-to-heart and deep talk that we're about to do. I think it makes it easier. So yeah, so you and I, like I said, we've been kind of going back and forth for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months now, and it's just a comedy of errors, I guess, that have kind of, happened on, family issues on both ends. But, Daryl, I've already read the bio out, and I'm really interested in hearing how you took the moment that I read out and how you've had that enable you to change your life and get where you're at today. But, before we kind of dive into that, I would love for you to tell us like just who you are and what you're doing nowadays.
I reside in Brisbane on the East Coast. It's a beautiful sunny part of Australia. And I'm building a speaking business out of the events of 17 years ago now. And in between building, I still maintain my regular job as an officer. But I enjoy lots of highs in life. I've had lots of lows. So we were just discussing. My brother lives in England. We were supposed to be skiing in December with friends in Team France. But I suffered a meniscus tear, which is going to stop me from running and skiing for 6 months. So I'll do other things. I'll go to the Philippines and go and swim with some whale sharks in a Longapo in the next couple of months.
Well, yeah, it's amazing. That's got to be a long flight though from Australia to London, right?
Yes, it is a long flight, and I've only ever done it once, non-stop. And from my place to my brother's place in Cambridge, on the go constantly, trains, transfer, buses, 30 hours. I got there, I was exhausted, and put me over it, so I'll never do it again. So my little tip for anybody travelling, if you're doing like that, stop somewhere, be it Singapore, Bangkok, even if it's just 8 hours at an airport hotel. Incredibly refreshing. Better if you can take 3 days and enjoy something, but that's what I do now.
Yeah, my wife this summer, she went to Africa, and she had a 10-hour layover in Dubai, and it was probably a very good thing. But I don't know if you saw it, but in the news, I think it was yesterday, it was definitely this week, Elon Musk has come out now, and he said he's got his plans not only to get people on Mars, but also to do travel around the globe in 30 minutes. And so I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that works. But before we go all off on technology and current events, Twice Shot. What's this about, Daryl?
I left school, high school, and I never got into any of the university courses that I was particularly interested in. And I was very physically active, and I was thinking about joining the Australian Army. But at that time, they did very few international operations. And so basically I just thought, I do not want to go to the middle of the Australian desert and dig ditches for my career in the army.
Right.
And I was having a chat to my mum this one morning in the kitchen. She said, well, honey, why don't you join the police? And I thought, well, there's a job that I can learn new skills, and it's outdoor, it's adventurous, and fighting crime. And what I learn, I get to apply. So that's what I decided to do. But funnily enough, 2 weeks after I made this decision, I was having a chat in the evening with my father on the veranda, and he said, I don't mind you joining the police, but I'd rather you join the Australian Federal Police, who deal more with drug importations, cybercrime, etc., than the state police, where you're at risk of attending domestics and being stabbed, shot, or killed.
Right.
And I thought, what's the chances of that happening? I got sworn in with 400 people, and I drew the shortest of short straws, but I'm still here today to tell the tale.
Well, that's definitely a good thing. So what do you mean you drew the shortest straw? Where did that take you?
The 1st of May 2000, it was 3:50 in the morning. My partner and my sergeant and I were investigating a routine job, death threats which were spoken 15 hours earlier. We'd spoken to the two males who called us to this cul-de-sac, and we needed to do background checks to decide our course of action, whether we were going to do an emergency search like right then and then, go to the other house in the street, kick the door down and search for the offenders, search for the alleged weapon, or if we didn't think their credibility was strong enough, we'd have to go to a justice of the peace and see if they wished to sign out a search warrant. So we've just started our investigation. Sergeant is in the the driver's seat of the vehicle. He's using a mobile phone to do background checks on the suspect with police communications. A partner, she's in the front passenger seat using the police radio to do background checks on the two males who called us there. Now, I decided, well, I'll open the back door, slide across the middle of the seat, and I'll listen to the information coming in. And we're going to be there such a short period of time, I'll leave the side door open. Now, This is a good neighbourhood. Never been to the street before, never any problems, and it's pitch black and dead quiet outside. All of a sudden, I hear this pat, pat, pat sound. And I wondered in my head, what can that be? And I thought, it must be a neighbourhood dog running up to the car. So I just nonchalantly turned and looked to the left outside the open patrol car door, and there's a man, and pointed less than a metre from my face is a .22 rifle. In an instant, my head is flung over the other side of the back seat. I've been shot in the face, so then I was shot in the shoulder. My hands are around my mouth. There's blood, there's teeth, there's bones. I try to open the door where my head is on the other side, but we have the child locks on, so that door doesn't work. So I set up. I see my sergeant's door is open. His seat is empty. My partner's with blood, and she's completely motionless. And I screamed, get help. I drew my firearm, adrenaline kicked. I went into fight mode, and I went searching for the gunman.
Wow. Okay. So how long had you been in service at this point?
And probably just, mate, one point here, when I do professional speaking and keynotes or workshops, I actually play the audio of the shooting. This was actually all recorded, so you could actually hear me scream out and then me go into fight mode. And what we say here in Australia, we drop the F-bomb, the F word, and then I have to apologise to the ladies in the audience and say, sorry, ladies. I also dropped the C-bomb.
Wow. That's incredible. Wow. All right. Well, so I got to ask, what was this did you ever have an altercation like that again you're still active duty. So, have you had any other altercations like that in your career?
Nothing as extreme as that. Nothing compared.
Well, I was going to say,
I've been assaulted. Yeah.
That's pretty extreme.
Yes.
So, well, Daryl, how has that affected your life since then? I mean, a lot of people, fear holds them back, and I assume people say when they have an experience like that the colors of the world are so much more vivid. They can hear better. things like that. How has your life shifted since then?
It's been a long time to get there, but I completely agree that one of my favourite sayings is don't sweat the small stuff. And I consistently have people complaining about the small things. I'll turn around to say to them, it might be a service station attendant, say that your card's not working, so I'm really sorry. I say, okay, I'll pay cash. If this is the worst thing that happens this year, this is a great year.
Absolutely.
Uh, the other things is just taking notice in the small, simple things like sunsets. I do a lot of running. Well, not right now with this knee. I've got 6 months before I can return running. But I don't go to the gym. I like to be outdoors, and that's probably part of what occurred and some of my other things that have happened to me. I like to be outdoors. Love running to see the sunset. And appreciate that I've seen another sunset and how beautiful, were the hues in the sky. It is so true. And yet I unfortunately have to deal with a lot of people who sweat the small stuff that, my next career step is hinging on, making sure that stats add up. And so I'm going to try and screw the last ounce of energy out of every employee so I can make that, that next jump in my career. And I have to bite my tongue, and but when I'm on the stage, I don't have to. And I've had a few people come up and say, thank you, we're going through a organisational restructure of the company, and I've paid so little attention to the staff. I just want to go and speak to them all right now because of what you've said.
Yeah. No, and it can be powerful. I mean, when you can be your authentic self, right? And that's who you're being up on stage. I mean, you're being 100% who you are.
The Daryl Elliott Green that you're speaking to now, that you will, meet in the airport, and just Daryl Green, you'll meet up there on the stage.
Yeah.
And that's the way, that's the way people should be. I wish a lot more politicians were like that.
Yeah.
But it's also the easy way, to be so when somebody asks you honestly, you're not sitting there or thinking, or you're putting on a front, and also you can sleep easy at night. That really helps.
Yeah.
So if you ask me about gay marriage on the stage, I'll be the same answer on stage as or privately. So
right. Well, so you touched on, how did that experience, being shot and, seeing your partner there and, the sergeant there, going through that, how has that, obviously you've pivoted, but you're still active duty. How has it changed your life overall? I mean, I know you don't sweat the small things, and, you're probably a lot more confident and stuff, but I mean, how has your life changed?
I can say that the things that I do in life, that if, say it's, skiing, or like when I climbed Kilimanjaro for charity, I enjoyed them so much more. I was just so much again, paid so much more attention to the beauty. But the other thing is that I learned to pick up on other people and see quite right. And other people just pass it off, they're having a bad day, and I might wait, till we're at the end of the kitchen and making a coffee. Everybody else is gone and saying, hey, Jack, mate, are you okay? You're not your normal self. And funnily enough, a lot of people have this. I'll turn around and say, you know what, Greenie, you're the first person to pick up on it. No, it's not. My missus, she just walked out last night. I haven't told anybody, and I'm really struggling.
Right.
And then you can help, say, go seek professional help. I'm not a professional, but saying like, hey, it's a normal reaction to a very, horrible event. I don't think anybody's, jumped for joy when their partner's walked out of them all of a sudden. And, and one of the things I love to tell people, which I've done, is if you're going through trauma or a difficult time, be it as a victim of an assault or a rob, something or as simple as common but horrific as a divorce, find somebody who's had a similar experience but come out the other side. And so powerful to hear from them to say, mate, these are the stages I went through with my divorce. And now that I've met somebody I really love and I'm really happy, and it was the best thing that happened to me to end that relationship and go on.
Yeah, I think that's another aspect of that is when you become more vulnerable in your own life and you start living that authentic self, and that's like you're practicing it more, you can start seeing those different shades of people, because you're not trying to sit there and hide who you are. You're just living life at that point. And when you're not busy hiding, you can see everyone else. It's just, I think it does make things a lot more vivid. Well, Daryl, what do you do, to always trying to improve yourself? I mean, you've talked about, the traveling, you're doing public speaking, and, it sounds like you were a runner up until recently, but, what else do you do to just, keep that edge and keep sharp and always trying to, be the best version of yourself?
I have always been a big reader, and we get very, very time poor. But I've discovered something I absolutely love. I do it each day, and I can do it when I'm running, do it in the car. And that is simply audiobooks. And I'm a particular fan of, basically, I just listen to nonfiction. I like true stories, and some of the books I do listen to are educated too. They have leadership or resilience or, enterprise or business or so forth. But mostly true stories. I'm actually rereading a book because I've got this time laid up, and it's called Against the Odds. And it was about battles where commanders turn the tide against over odds. And I heard about it on the radio. I was visiting my mum and dad up at Caloundra a few years ago on a holiday. I was driving back, and the author was interviewed over the radio. And the radio announcer said, if you could sum up what these commanders had in common and make them to turn these situations around, what would it be? And I remember the things that he said, and I've embedded in me, and it's been very, very helpful in my personal and professional career. And so the first thing he said about these commanders, they did not panic. And so I've received some bad information not so long ago, and I wasn't pleased how it was sent, but I waited a couple of days until I responded, and I picked up the telephone and so that I was in a calm and rational voice, and I wasn't going to make the situation worse.
Right.
So I was applying that. The second thing he said about these commanders, they planned. They thoroughly planned. They looked into what they do, the resources available and the options, and they got a solid plan. And I'm a huge one for planning and notes and starting before, as James Clear says, start before you're ready.
Right.
In doing that. So that was the second one. And I said, well, that's great. I'm naturally a planner. I have, my daily just to-do list, but I also have my plans in relation to my speaking and the travel I've got for the year. But the third one was the kicker for me. And I think where a lot of people and even organisations fall down, it is these commanders acted decisively. It wasn't just a toe in the water. It's not, this is what we're doing, go for it. And so that was some self-improvement for me, and I'm rereading that, those lessons, and make sure that I'm doing exactly that.
It's amazing how, books can do that. And it's not books, just media in general, how easy it is. You can pick up something and, essentially you distilled it down to those 3 key points. And first off, everyone comes out with the different key points. Not everyone, but, a lot of us come out with different key points. But you walk away with those 3 key points, and it can be transformational in your life. So how have you implemented those lessons in your business or in your life? How has it helped you shift?
When something goes wrong, you'll often find there's an opportunity. And with this knee injury, this prevented me of going on a trip. I should have been in the Philippines for 3 weeks with a German friend who's unfortunately going through a divorce. So I wanted to cheer him up and go swimming with
Yeah.
whale shark. We'll get to that. And like, this is a real, downer. But then occurred an amazing opportunity. I've been asked to speak at the beginning of Mental Health Week here in Australia for the Australian Psychology Society. And this would not be possible if that event never occurred. Now, this is a very large organisation and a organisation and a profession that I'm very, very grateful for, because I've had such help from psychologists. So that turned around. And what was the decisive action? They wanted a 10-minute style TED talk. I have never done a minute style TED talk. And I do, half-day workshops, full-days workshops.
Right.
I got a 45-minute, killer keynote, and I just said yes to it. And guess what? I've got it down pat. I have my 10-minute TED talk ready to rock them and just tell that one really powerful story about a psychologist. And I'm so looking forward to doing this, because he was a Vietnam veteran. He happened very badly injured, come back to Australia, got dangerously suicidal, but he reached out for help, and in time he wanted to help others. And when I got shot in 2000, I was clamming up, not saying too much, thinking I was going a bit crazy. I got introduced to him. His name is Chris Manklow, and he was able to build trust very quickly, because he said to me, mate, this is what happened in Vietnam. I come home, I soldiered on for 3 more years, but I got dangerously suicidal. I had the gun in my mouth ready to pull the trigger. Doesn't have to end like that. Looking forward to telling
that's got to be powerful. Yeah, and I can't believe, it's 3 years, being stuck with those thoughts and feelings, and then come out on the other side. So, wow. Well, yeah. So, what do you do for just what kind of personal habits do you have to make sure that you're always growing? You've mentioned a few already.
The first one, the audio books is a big one. Reading, taking information. The other thing, I suppose, what I do is when I grew up, my father says to me, "Birds of a feather flock together." We're all time poor, and I used to spend time with not only people I trust and respect, but who are challenging me, or I can learn from and get a bit of guidance. And so I've got a friend who has a financial planning business. And so I'm exposed to discussions with him about the world economy and how he's made his portfolios, etc. So that's one way. I've got another friend who is an executive, and get a different perspective from the corporate world when chatting. So I pay attention, and if I meet somebody really interesting, and I say, hey, I'd like to take this conversation further. Do you want to do lunch one weekend? And so this might be somebody is into sports or something completely different realm from me. I might even disagree with them about something, but I'll learn.
Yeah, and I think having those different people from different backgrounds and just facets of life, it definitely can. I mean, we all have different opinions, and to me, it's just interesting. Even if you come from the same town, went to the same schools, how you can be a different person, and different belief and values. So trying to understand that, I think it's pretty rewarding once you get to get past your own ego and look at others, and you don't have to agree with them, but hey, let's hear this person out, and it can be pretty rewarding. So, and at the end of the day, if you don't change your opinion, it makes you stronger, because it's another, it's like another front in a battle, okay, so now I know how to defend myself against that argument. So,
yeah. And for people who are thinking, well, this is just my life, this is what I do, I'm not really meeting people, join associations. And like one of them that I remember is Professional Speakers Australia, PSA, and in America, it's NSA, National Speakers Association. But through PSA, I meet a wide variety of people from all walks of life, from professional sportsmen like Max Walker, passed away last year, unfortunately, to somebody who speaks and was a prisoner. Here I am as a police officer, and I sit down every couple of months when they attend one of the chapter meetings, and we have these great conversations about incarceration and prisons, and what works and what doesn't, and it's fascinating.
It is, yeah, and it really is. I mean, I know the incarceration rate here in the U.S. is, very high compared to the rest of the world, rest of the countries out there. But so it's a good argument, a good debate to get in with people. So especially with some of my European friends, especially like in the Scandinavian countries, because their system is completely different than it is here in the U.S. So
you don't solve problems by talking to people who agree with you.
Agree, right? I agree. So, this podcast, it's all about, trying to find the best version of yourself and always, trying to, level up and get better at every facet of your life. What are you currently working on, Daryl, in your life that you're trying to improve on?
Right now is more writing. My mentor is saying, you think well, you got a good head on your shoulders, you've got an amazing story, you got a master's degree in finance, and so he's encouraging me to start literally blogging more, putting a few of my ideas down, and that's what I'll do. Right now, well, when this goes to air, my website will be updated, and there'll be this book that I've just been featured in, that will be available from the website. So the website's actually in hiatus right now as they build the shopping cart and everything to go, so people can purchase the hard copy or the ebook, and then some. After that, I will start to thrash out the ideas. Like Stephen King, I was just the other day, I was exposed to one of his thoughts, and if you want to get good at writing, like 4 to 6 hours a day.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's not me. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it takes dedication and hard work, and and honestly, it's a great segue to the next question. Balance. So you're still a active duty officer. You do speaking on the side. You've got this book coming out. You do public speaking engagements. You run. You travel. How do you do all this? How do you balance it?
A lot of things I'm doing I love, and so that makes it easy. And I also consider myself fairly efficient. That would help. And I've got a lot of routines as well. So I like to eat healthy, but I'll do quick meals. I will throw a steak on the barbecue, bring that in back into my kitchen. I'll have a bowl full of broccoli, a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper. Put that in the microwave for a couple of minutes. There's my dinner. I eat at the kitchen bench, so not to make a mess of the table and have anything else to clean up. I like to entertain, and I do that occasionally. But some efficient practices help, and routines are really important. I'll tell you, some days get really busy, but what I'll do is I will go for a 15-minute run, 7 minutes out from my apartment through a lovely park area along some beautiful houses, and 7 minutes back in. So nearly 15 minutes. And so even though I'm not doing my 30 or my 45-minute run, I'm still maintaining the habit by doing that short run. And I get the buzz and the excitement of the exercise. I feel good because I've completed that, but that's given me a little bit more time for something else I may need to attend to, like this interview.
Right. Yeah, no, I think, when you are passionate about the things that you do, it doesn't seem like it's work, and it doesn't seem like you're investing as much time and energy into it because of, it's fun. It's eliciting all the, positive emotions and chemicals in your body, I believe. So,
yeah.
well,
one other thing
Yeah.
One other thing I might just add there is I don't have children, and obviously they're a priority, and that does take a lot of people's time. And unfortunately, I had great parents who invested a lot of myself and my brother and raised two young fine children. So that's if people can be a little bit more efficient there, that's great. If one partner can take a bit more of the load off the other partner, like happens in my brother's family, where my wife does less work so she can look more after the kids and he can concentrate more on the family's business. I'd say that. And the other thing too is there's so much junk on TV. Yeah. Oh, no worries. Yeah. I watch very little television because most of it is just junk. And people ask me about a certain show. What's this? What's that? Look, fine. If that's, if people want to relax and they find, 30 minutes of a certain program, that's great. But people will procrastinate and I don't have enough time. And, sat home, watch this movie last night or watch 2 episodes of this. And I'm thinking, well, why you're not getting anything done? That's why you're not progressing.
Yeah. And, I think it's really bad now because people binge, right? And they'll do not just 1 or 2 episodes. They'll watch an entire season of something in a weekend.
And the other one is social media.
Yeah.
The other one, I don't care what people have had for breakfast or that they're shopping in hills. I just literally don't care. If you climb Kilimanjaro, I'm interested. And that's the type of thing I post. I will only post good, happy news when I'm doing something pretty amazing like skiing, swimming with whale sharks. The rest of the time when I'm back home, you won't hear from me on media about anything that I'm doing for literally months because there's nothing great. But
right.
People just waste time on that.
Yeah. It's very true. Well, Daryl, so just kind of, go on to some of the wrap up questions here. So, you had this pretty, we didn't dive into, that transformative experience earlier on, but, there's a lot of people out there that have had, traumatic events in their life. And, there might be someone out there listening today that has experienced, a lot of trauma in their life or just had, a pretty good upset, like you mentioned one of the examples, their wife walked out on them. What if there's that person out there, they've experienced this trauma and they've got this, sense of hopelessness or just despair, and they might be listening today. What kind of advice would you give that person to, cheer them up and kind of get them through to the other side?
When you're in a dark spot, I know this, I've been in a few, and I've learned that all seems hopeless. The number one thing that I concentrate on is just to keep going because nothing stays the same. So if you can keep the mindset, keep going, nothing stays the same. It's going to get better or it's going to get worse. That'll help you, keep moving forward. They'll get positive momentum. The other thing that I would like to suggest to people is something that literally I did, and that was that I had a great fear around confrontation, firearms, which is not good for a police officer.
Right.
And after the shooting, I went into investigations and I went into training, and so I wasn't confronted with that with so much. But period of time that I did go back to operational policing, and I would never have been able to do that, to go back for that period, except that when I realised fed up with this and I decided to do something about it, and I called on a bit of wisdom. Now, this is a book that I read when I was a boy. It was a biography of Erwin Rommel, and some advice: if you have a fear, face earliest opportunity. And I got fed up of going to firearms practice, dreading it, and going there, getting it over with as fast as I could, leaving there and wanting to throw up. I got sick of that, and I thought to myself, well, how can I overcome this? And I said, well, I need to face it, to fight and overcome it. How can I do that? And I thought about I spoke to one of the best boss I had about it, and he had previously been a firearms instructor himself. He supported me in that. I made an application and I undertook the course, and it was intense. And I did. It really did throw up some challenges for me, but I used coping strategies, running, talking, and visualization, visualizing myself, going through the routines and the exercise and the scenario correctly, rather than overreacting, drawing on the fear of my experience, saying that person's got a gun, I know it's not pointed at me, but I want to shoot them anyway. Using all those experiences to get me through that course, become a firearms instructor, very empowering. And now there's no issues whatsoever, and I love firearms instructing, and I still do that on a part-time basis. I recently requalified just last year as a firearms instructor. So for somebody else who finds himself in that deep, dark spot, please keep going. Realize nothing stays the same. It will get better or it will get worse, one or the other. And then you're dealing with something, and it might be you're involved in a horrible car accident. Seek professional help. Go see a psychologist, a psychiatrist. Seek that, but then be guided by them, or put it towards them and say, I'd like to try and face this and overcome. And that might be for the person who's been through that trauma, supported by a professional psychologist or psychiatrist. I want to go do an advanced car course. I want to learn how to drive properly, safely, at speed. I want to find out, okay, when the wheels go out from underneath me because I've hit oil, how do I control the vehicle, get control of it back again?
I like that. It's running right towards the fear that you have and really trying to dive into it. I like that approach. I don't probably do that enough, but I have done that, so I definitely like that. Well,
it's a little bit like public speaking. There's actually a term for fear of public speaking called glossophobia. And funnily enough, when at grade 8, when I had to do my first talk in front of the class, it was an absolute failure. It was. I won't go into it now, but sometimes I do tell that story. But funnily enough, I suppose the building blocks were there. Look, if you give me 60 seconds, I'll give you the rough version.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Grade 8 English class, you had to stand up in front of the class and speak for 15, 20 minutes on a particular event in the news. And I was absolutely petrified. So I had these palm cards, and I wrote down my notes on my palm cards. I stood there in front. Well, I was there at the class on this day, and the teacher asked, well, would anybody like to volunteer? Go first. And I was in so much pain, so much dread. I just wanted to get it over and done with. I said, like, shoot me now. So I shot my hand up. I got selected. I went out in front. I started talking. Now, I'm talking about the Union Carbine disaster that occurred in India.
Okay.
And I start looking at my palm cards, and I'm not trying to read them, but just look at them and get the idea, and then look up at the class and speak. But what happened was I got the cards out of order, and then I dropped them. And I've actually used an expletive. I've used the S word. And the teacher's come up, put her arm around me and said, Daryl, perhaps you better sit down to recover and we'll come back to you. So I got up at the end of the and I actually just read the palm cards. I was so terrified. I just one card after the other, not making any eye contact with anybody, just like reading one card after the other. The following year was history class, and we had to do the same thing. We had to speak 15 to 20 minutes on a topic of our choice from history. And I chose a topic A that I liked, but I was just determined not to allow that event to repeat itself. So the topic I researched gunpowder, its history and its use, and come up with what I thought was a reasonably interesting talk. But I never used palm cards at all. I memorized the entire talk.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It stood out there in black, and I knew it. And so I suppose from an early age, so there's a problem, something's gone wrong, I'm determined to do something about it. And hopefully that will encourage readers to say that you might have a problem, but there's opportunity to overcome it some way.
Yeah. And obviously now you do public speaking. So you've obviously have transformed, and you've learned a lot, and that's kind of behind you now, and now you're just trying to hone the craft.
Oh, well, exactly. I was very fortunate. In 2015, I was awarded the Carey Scholarship for Public Speaking by Professional Speakers Australia, and that's a 12-month scholarship to develop an emerging speaker. So I've had incredible training, done incredible courses, and had a mentor who still to this day comes over and visits me, and he's coming just next week to review my 10-minute TED Talk. I've already sent him through my slides and my notes, and he said, "Mate, you've nailed that." And I said, I'd love to run it by you. So normally I cook dinner. My dad will come over, and my mentor Kevin Ryan will come over. Right now, I'm not up to cooking dinner. So Dad at 85 still cooks a fantastic roast dinner. So we'll have a roast and some veggies, and I'll sit on a chair and I'll do the 10-minute TED Talk.
Wow. Well, Daryl, what's the best way for the audience to get in touch with you? I know you said you're currently your website's being redeveloped right now, but what's the best way?
Actually, and if I go back, one thing, and this is something about I'd like to encourage people who are want to do some, be it if they're speaking, on a stage or speaking, in an office or a conference, and that step out behind the podium, and when you're telling a story, don't be afraid to role play. It's the most powerful thing, and it's the most funnest thing. So a lot of the conversations that I have, even I actually role play, and that's what that scholarship taught me. And I like to encourage others, because people love stories. We've all got stories. If you role play that story, and even just get feedback from your partner or a friend before you go do it, and that glossophobia will go, and you'll start to improve, and you'll start to really enjoy it. So, role playing and public speaking are just meant to be together.
Yeah, I took a improv class a number of years ago, and it was 8 weeks long, and that 8 weeks, it was the best probably experience I had. I mean, in regards to the value of time and energy I put in regards to how much I got out of it. It was pretty transformational, I thought, for myself. So, and that it's got those elements. It's got the public speaking part, and it's obviously it's got the role playing part. And the biggest thing is that it keeps you out of your head, or at least for me, because you couldn't sit there and just like, okay, no, I can't go with this. You just had to go with what the cards you were handed, and you had just to go with it. So, well,
good on you. Yeah, that's excellent. I'd like to see, where you practice what you preach.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so what's the best way for the audience to get in touch with you?
Best way people can get in contact with me is email. It's Daryl, DARYL, @twiceshot.com. There's also my website, twiceshot.com, which has all my social media there. So, and feel free for people to reach out and say good day, because I love connecting with people and learning from other people as well. And I will be starting my writing very shortly, and starting a monthly publication. And a few.
Well, I know a few. I was going to say, I know in the show notes and everything, I'll put all those links in there. That way people can access them. And you've got a project that's coming out soon, right? By the time this podcast airs, it'll be behind us, I suppose. But do you want to touch on that a little?
Yes. Dean Publishing heard from a film producer here, Michael Hansen, who did a small documentary on me. And they were looking to put together a book of people, Australians with amazing stories, particularly that were showed significant resilience. And he's turned around and said, there's this copper up in Queensland, and have a look at this. And they've got in touch with me and said, we'd love you to be part of this book and do a chapter. And I'm looking forward in time to writing my memoir or working with a biographer. but this was an opportunity to in a nutshell, talk about that night and talk about some of the lows and some of the highs, and particularly, when I challenged myself to become a firearms instructor. So I was asked, and I am now appear in the book Resilience.
All right. And
sorry. I'm just getting to the title. Yeah. So I'm now featured in Resilience: Building a Powerful Mindset by Dean Publishing, and that's available from my website, twiceshot.com. And there's a hard copy version, there's a PDF version, and there's an EPUB version. And for your listeners, if they use the promo code Ninja25, there'll be a 25% discount.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Daryl. Yeah, and I'll definitely get a copy of that. I'd love to read it. I mean, resilience is, as a as a parent, as as an executive, as an entrepreneur. I think all of those things, resilience, you need it in every aspect of your life. So, and I learned through stories. So.
Oh, yeah, it's like true stories are just gold. I love them. I look forward to when they come out, and then I'll often actually I generally try to read the book and then watch the movie, like Louis Zamperini, Unbroken.
Right.
Amazing book, amazing movie, amazing man.
Well, Daryl,
one more thing I would like to offer for your audience. I have spoken Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Germany, but I haven't spoken in the US yet. And if one of your podcast listeners engage me to speak in the US, I'll discount my speaking fee by 25%. All they need to do, Tom, is mention your and that's what I do. Because I'm looking forward to my first time speaking in the US and sharing this story. And police officers in the US unfortunately experience something that I have been through a lot often than we do here in Australia. So I just be a little bit of an ambassador for the police. I know they haven't had an easy time of late. And just let people know that the hard yards, 99% of coppers out there are the good apples, and they're working damn hard to keep the community safe.
Right. No, and thank you for that, Daryl. Yeah, I will. I'll definitely put that in the show notes as well, and obviously the audience will be able to get in touch with you. Well, I think Daryl, my final question here, and is that it's kind of putting the ball back in your court. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to bring up before we close out?
There is two small things.
Okay.
That I would like to share with your audience. Just give us a moment to find it in my notes. Basically, I'd like to just recommend a book that I have recently read, and I found absolutely riveting, and again just displayed that we really don't know what lies within us. And it is about the US military, and these guys, they weren't special forces. They were not Green Berets, SEALs, or Delta Force. They were your average combat soldier, who puts their life on the line to defend their country. I listened to this audio book recently, and I was absolutely riveted by it, and I'd like to recommend it to your audience. And not only I think will they be very, very proud of these American soldiers, find the book fascinating, but also just a reminder, until you're in the situation, you truly do not know what you're capable of, and we're capable of some pretty amazing things. So that book is Red Platoon, A True Story of American Valor by Clinton Ramachet. An absolutely outstanding read, and I do hope one day that our paths may cross, that I may be shake that amazing man's hand. He was one of two people who the Medal at the Keating Outpost Battle.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'll definitely put that on my own reading list as well, which, as you can imagine, only gets longer and longer every day.
Yes.
Well,
And there's one
other, right?
more piece of parting advice that I would like to share. Okay, here it is. The one piece of parting advice that I would like to share with the audience, and this took me 10 years to come to this conclusion. And what it's based on was, after I was shot, I went through 2 reconstructions of my mouth, and this was the first one failed. And that took 7 years to get finalised. I was at the same time battling for criminal compensation, and that took 10 years to be finalised into a newspaper article. It was red tape ambush. A copper shot a decade ago fighting for compensation. And during this time, I was just thinking, geez, I don't think there's much a career for me in the police. Well, I need to study. And so I was enrolled in a master's degree in applied finance. So from 2003 to 2000, I'm studying that. Guess where I was living? I was living with my mum and my dad because, I have been diagnosed with PTSD, and I know that's going to be a part of my life, but it gets less and less. And I had the privilege of being counselled by a Vietnam veteran who was a psychologist, and he said, Wayne's, over time, just keep on following the healthy habits, like you're running. And if you need to go back on medication from time to time, do that. That's what he's had to do. So,
yeah.
What I learned that, though, because I had a lot of negativity. You're not standing on your own 2 feet. You're living at home with your elderly parents. And these people didn't know the operations I was going through. That letter that I might have just received from the government saying, I'm sorry, your circumstances do not fit criminal compensation. The depression that I was suffering, the next operation that I had to face. All they saw was that one snippet of my life, and it cut me to the bone. But I realised I was caring about all these people who really didn't care about me. And what I realised is, and it's helped me be really strong in the face of a lot of adverse criticism, is don't care about what other people think. The people you care about what they think.
Yep, I agree. We do tend to get in that mindset, right? Like, always concerned about what other people are thinking. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, you mentioning you see that person that's getting coffee, and you wait till everyone leave the room, and you can tell something's wrong with him. It's because you weren't in your own head, and when you can escape your own head, I think that's really when you start to experience and live life, because you see other people and you get to live life how you want rather than living on everyone else's agenda. So
exactly right. You only got one shot at life, and never be on your deathbed wondering what if.
Absolutely, I agree. Well, Daryl, thank you for all the wisdom you shared with us today, and you gave us I think I wrote down like 4 or 5 different books, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you go. And definitely, if you're in the U.S., I'll definitely, I would love to see you speak sometime. So, thanks for coming on today.
It's been a pleasure, Tom. Thanks for what you're doing too. It's because you never know, with that little bit of inspiration or that little bit of a story that might help somebody, be it to challenge themselves or to reach out for help, mate. So really appreciate what you're doing.
We covered a lot in this interview, just so much. There's a ton of books that he mentioned, but it's really just some of the stuff that we hear continually on the show. Like, you got to be passionate about what you want. You got to have some routines. You got to limit your time on things that just bring you down and just our time sucks, like, watching TV and social media. He also just talks about how, having a mentor in his life is vitally important and continues his growth and self-development. And, the two big things that he really leaves are just makes him stay on his game are role-playing his stories and public speaking. And, I talked about the role of improv, how it had an impact on me. So, those are some of my key takeaways, speaking with Daryl today. And I really enjoyed it. What were some of your key takeaways?
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and uprev your life.
If you haven't, please head on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review for the show. By doing so, this helps the show get noticed by more listeners and helps spread the word of how to discover the best version of yourself. Also, if you have any feedback about the show or a guest that you would like, please go to my website, https://uprev.ninja and contact me. This week's review comes from Elaine Benoit. Interesting and engaging. I enjoyed listening to Tom. He has an easy style of interviewing his guests. I was engaged and interested throughout the episode. Great job, Tom.